Hello fellow orchid lovers, it's Danielle here with a video finally. Very sorry that I've been a little MIA. This summer has been really crowded with activities. My husband and I had the opportunity to spend 3 weekends camping at the beach, so of course we took advantage of that. And then when I got back, unfortunately I came down with the flu, so I've been out of it for quite a while. So I do apologize that I haven't been posting, and I also have not been replying to your questions and your comments, which is not like me, and I do apologize for that. I'm going to answer some of your questions here in this video. I wanted to give you just a brief update and then also answer some of your questions. So some pretty good stuff that's going on, or some interesting stuff. This is my Dendrobium violaceum. So I've had her for about 6 months. She came to me in full bloom. All of her blooms have dropped, but she grew this growth in my care. Now, as you can see, that structure is not as big as some of her other structures, but the great thing is she's not holding that against me, and it looks like she's going to get some flowers. So she's working on a little bit of a spike there. It's slow going, but again, I've only had her for a couple of months, so she's getting used to my environment. She's got quite a significant amount of roots growing on that new growth, so that's great. So she's doing really well. So I wanted to share that with you. I really love these Latoria type Dendrobiums. I do want more, but I'm trying to go easy this summer because I've been so busy, and I'm trying to limit the amount of orchids that I bring into my collection because my collection's already pretty extensive. This is the orchid that my niece Charlie got me. She brought it to me in bloom. This was the bloom spike right here. I cut it, it branched, it got 2 buds, and then all of a sudden it decided, you know what, I'm not finished. And it started putting out more. So looks like I'm gonna get another 2 blooms out of her. She's loving where she is. She has some new roots, as you can see. So she's doing really well. This is one of my original orchids that I started growing in water culture. This orchid has given me nothing but problems. I really think that it's a diseased orchid. It's all my methods that I'm using to try to save this orchid. It's still alive, but just barely. And every new root that it puts out has a tendency to rot. And it's not because it's in the water, because as you can see, that root is not in the water. I just have a piece of microfiber cloth that's just slightly damp, kind of draped over it, which I've used that method with a lot of my Phalaenopsis, and it has worked. But this is the one that the stem is like disgusting and smells like pesticides. So I think maybe this orchid might be diseased and I might be fighting a losing battle, but it just put out this new leaf. So while it's still putting out new structures, I'm gonna try to save it. But this is the one Phalaenopsis I have that just will not respond to my methods. So you'll have to keep tuned for that one. My Tullum Nia has bloomed. Look at that adorable little cutie. So this is Tullum Nia Jarrick Firm Snow White, and one of my subscribers said that theirs bloomed pink, and honestly, when the sun is really shining on it, there is pink veining in the lip. Mine bloomed. You see that yellow in the center? Mine bloomed that yellow and then turned to white, but there is pink veining in the lip, and so when the sun is shining, like backlighting the flower, it does look very pink. He said that he was told that the temperature is what depends on what blooms you get. So just, he said that his temperatures were colder. My temperatures, I try to keep my house in the low 70s, which is comfortable for me and seems comfortable for my orchids. So it's kind of a tiny spike. It's only got 2 flowers. This one has a lot less spotting on the lip. This one is adorable. But I've been told that Tullum Nia spikes branch, so I'm just gonna let it go. And honestly, I, in all truth, did not expect to get Tullum Nia blooms, because I bought Tullum Nias not really thinking about the care, just kind of like, oh, I love Tullum Nias, I'm gonna get some of those. And then realized that the care is not really something I'm capable of. They like a really quick wet dry cycle, and I just don't have time in my day every single day to water and then dump and then water and then dump. And so their roots stay a lot more damp than they probably should be, but I still got a spike, so I'm really happy about that. This is my Keiki, my young home sweetie Keiki. She's doing really good. She has a nice long root that keeps growing. She's got a secondary root there, and it's kind of hard to see, but it looks like she's working on a little leaf. So she's progressing. She's doing well. This is my first Keiki, so I'm kind of surprised that I got one, and I'm really happy that she's surviving my environment. This is my Cattleya Akiko Sado Volcano Queen. This is one of the Cattleyas that I got from Carmela Orchids. I got that big box special. I forget how many were. I think it was 10 Cattleyas in the box, and they pick the Cattleyas for you. So this is the first bloom that I've grown. Two of the Cattleyas that came in the box had spikes, so I don't really count them as my blooms, but this I count as my bloom. I've had this orchid. I actually don't know how long I've had this orchid. I can't say quite a year, but it's probably coming up on a year. And this new growth is my new growth. I grew this one, and as you can see, it's significantly larger than the other growths, and she decided to give me a flower. Now, I don't know if you guys can really see, but it's kind of stunning. It's got a lot of green in it, which you wouldn't typically think is beautiful in a flower, but it's just such an interesting contrast. And then the lip is like velvety and frilly, and she does have a beautiful fragrance. She's only been open for like 2 days, but her fragrance is really, really strong and very, very beautiful. So I'm kind of thrilled with her. This is my Phalaenopsis, no-name Phalaenopsis that I named Diane. And she's blooming. She's got her 2 blooms there. Again, that's from a spike that I cut. So you'll notice whenever you cut a spike and let it rebloom, the secondary blooming is never going to be as showy as the first blooming, or it's very rare for it to be as showy. You usually get like 2 to 4, maybe 5 blooms from a secondary spike, but it's worth it to have them around for a little while longer. I just love this buttery yellow, beautiful bloom. She's coming through a lot brighter in the video than she actually is. But really pretty with that contrasting lip and then the stripe there. So a few of the questions that I've encountered that I wanted to answer, and I apologize for not answering directly in the comment pane, is one of my subscribers asked, how often do you change your water? So the answer to that question is once a week. It's not like it's a firm and hard rule that if I do it on a Monday, the next Monday I have to do it. You know, some days I'll let it go a day or 2 past that, but I really try to change it once a week. Another person asked me how I deal with algae, which kind of has to do with the whole changing the water thing. So I do change the water once a week, so the algae never really becomes a huge problem. But as you can see here, this particular plant, there is a fair amount of algae in the bottom of the vase. I don't freak out about algae. Obviously, you don't want it to take over and take control. Like this probably needs to be cleaned. But just a little bit of algae is really not going to hurt the plants. So you don't, I mean, I personally don't freak out, and look at how healthy she is. She's the one that's in bloom. You know, so she does have algae in her vase. But I just, you know, every week I take her out, I clean the glass, I rinse her roots really good, and then I put her back in. And, you know, by the next week, this is the case again, and she needs to be cleaned again. So, you know, I take care of that. If there's just a tiny bit of algae, like for instance on my Dendrobium, you can see that there's a little bit, not a lot, but the water's still clear, everything's still in good shape. So I'm not going to clean this one right now. I do also try to clean the beads, because the algae can gather on the beads. So, you know, I just run everything under really hot water and just wipe out the glass really good. And then when I see it start getting out of control, like that one, then I do a little more thorough clean. You know, I'll take some soap and water and I'll clean it out, make sure I get all the remnants off, and then I'll take the roots and I'll actually, you know, in between my fingers, like rub them, try to get some of the algae off so that it won't take over. But if there's a little bit, I'm not fussed. I don't really freak out with that. Another subscriber asked me, do you fertilize sick orchids? And the answer to that question is yes. Actually, in my opinion, a sick orchid is more desperately in need of fertilizer than you know, a regular orchid, because they're trying to repair themselves. And so also too, a sick orchid frequently has a very poor root system, and so it's going to struggle to give itself nutrients and moisture. So yes, absolutely, I do feed my sick orchids. If you're concerned that your particular type of fertilizer is burning, you know, whatever roots that they have, you can definitely lower the dose and make it a very dilute solution of fertilizer if that's a concern for you. But I always feed my orchids. They never don't have food. You know, they do get their roots rinsed so that all the salt buildup comes out. They get their vases cleaned, you know, at least every other week. So, you know, I do try to keep up with that so that their roots won't burn, but they do get food all the time. So then someone else asked, where do I get my glass beads? So these are really just, I don't really know how to describe them. They're just like glass pebbles, really. And you can get them at your craft supply stores. They're usually like in the fake floral section. You can put them in, you know, a vase and then put a candle on them, or you can put them in the bottom of a vase where you're putting a silk floral arrangement. So that's where you can get them. I personally buy them on Amazon because they're so much cheaper there. I get a large, I think it's like a 5-pound bag for like $15. And I do have a fair amount of orchids that I use them on. So I buy in bulk because otherwise I'd be spending a fortune. Let me see, what other questions? So another person asked, how do I get the roots on my orchids to grow down? So this is a perfect example of an orchid that has roots in both areas. So you can see she's got a very healthy root system. Her old roots extended and went down into the water, but now she's starting to grow roots up here. Now some of them are airborne. That's fine. It's really okay. An orchid actually needs a lot of air, a lot of oxygen. So when they grow aerial roots, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, if you have your orchids growing outside and you're worried that the aerial roots are going to dry out, you can certainly on a very warm day, you know, spritz those roots. But personally, I don't worry about it. If, let's say, this orchid had all of these roots were not here and she's growing just aerial roots, like say for instance that root, I might just gently point it down and let it grow that way, you know, to give it a root that goes down into the water. You know, if she has no other roots, I might just do that, but you don't want to break the root, so be careful. Also, if your orchid, especially your Phalaenopsis, is struggling with roots, my advice to you is give it more light. By trial and error, I learned what my Phalaenopsis orchids like/love. So you know, when you get a Phalaenopsis orchid, the tag on the Phalaenopsis says bright indirect light. And so I kind of took that as, okay, it can't take direct sunlight. So for a very long time, I was growing my Phalaenopsis orchids in that window. That is a north-facing window. It doesn't get any direct sunlight except at the very end of the day. That side gets like maybe an hour of direct sunlight. But the window, although bright, is never actually like direct sunlight. So that's where I was growing my Phalaenopsis, and they were doing okay. They weren't terrible, but you know, there was really no progress. So then I decided, all right, let me move them to a slightly brighter location. I'm going to take you into my living room. I'm going to try not to trip over the dogs. And I'm going to show you where I have my Phalaenopsis now. So this is a west-facing window, and this is where all of my Phalaenopsis are now. So I have most of them on this shelf, and then the big ones, the ones that won't fit on that shelf, are up there with the Cattleyas. So I'm growing my Phalaenopsis orchids in Cattleya light. Now, if this was a south-facing window, no. That would be way too much light. But the amount of light that it gets in the afternoon when the sun is setting they are loving it. I mean, the amount of root growth on my Phalaenopsis orchids is astounding. I'm like so shocked all the time. I pick them up every week to water them, and there's new roots. You know, they're healthy. It's really great. So originally, I thought that this window might be too bright because it does get a fair amount of sunlight, especially like right now it's shaded because it's pretty early in the morning. But around 1 o'clock, the light starts hitting this window, and then the sun directly sets right there. So for a good portion of time, there is direct sunlight coming at these orchids. So originally I had this sheer curtain all up there, like completely covering, and then all the way around, just because I was concerned that the light might be too strong. They seemed to be fine with the sheer curtain. So then one day my housekeeper came in and she knocked the curtain down by accident, and she didn't, you know, she doesn't grow orchids, so she didn't realize, and she didn't know how to put it back up, so she just left it. So for an entire afternoon while I was at work, these orchids were getting major light, and I came home and I was like, oh my God, and I examined them to see if there was damage, and guess what? There wasn't. So I was like, wow, okay, so maybe they want more light. So then I moved the sheer curtain even lower, and now they get a lot of light and they love it. Like I said, the amount of root growth, let me just bring you in. See that root growth in there? And then you can see over here, I mean, they are very, very happy. And I do still have, let me see if there's a spot I can show you. Sorry, I'm moving around. I do still have the curtain up a little bit, but that's to control the algae, because it shades the water enough that the algae grows a lot slower. So that's what I do with my Phalaenopsis. And that's the amount of light I give them, and that has really increased their root growth. So just, you know, a little tip for you guys, so you'll know, you know, maybe one of the ways that you can increase root growth on your Phalaenopsis. Another person asked, do I use calcium? What kind of water do I use, and do I use calcium? So I currently am using distilled water. About 4 or 5 months ago, I did buy an RO system, but we've been so busy I have not installed it. I do plan on doing that at some point. But I just buy bottled, you know, like a gallon distilled water from the supermarket. I usually use about 3 to 4 gallons a week because I do have a lot of orchids. And I do use calcium, but not like a calcium supplement so much. My main fertilizer is an MSU fertilizer. This one is Jim's Orchid Supplies. People have asked me. I got it on Amazon. It's got a pretty complete nutrient spectrum. I should have taken this out before, I'm sorry. Come hither, child. There we go. Okay. It's got a pretty complete nutrient spectrum. So it already has calcium and magnesium in it. And then these are the micronutrients. Hey guys, I'm filming, so you need to be quiet, okay? Thank you. So this is my main fertilizer. However, in the growing season, I do boost with a cal nitrate mix. But I don't just do this, I add a bloom booster, because this has the other nutrients in it that this one doesn't. So this one doesn't have, you know, your phosphate, your potash, you know, all those other things. So this is just a calcium nitrate mix. So I add this one because it does have all of those other nutrients: magnesium, potash, phosphate, copper. So I mix this with this when I use this, just so that I'm giving it a balanced diet. So the answer is yes, I use calcium, but I don't just use calcium. Hey, come on. What are you doing? Your ear is flipped over. I don't know if you know that. Okay. Those are my puppies, by the way. Aren't they huge? Yeah, they are. So just a few updates on a few more orchids. So this is all that is left of my Mel Tawny Abscess purchases. A few months ago, I got a bunch of Mel Tawny Abscess, and this is it. I don't have the tag anymore. But this one is alive because it's a pseudobulb that has a new growth, and so I'm going to try to keep it alive. So far, so good. The new growth is continuing to grow. It's getting some new roots. Apparently, I can't film at the moment, or maybe at this angle. So it's getting some new roots. So there is hope for it. But this is it. That's all that's left of the. How many did I get? I got 3 Mel Tawny Abscess, and that's all she wrote. I wanted to share this with you. This is my Oncidium Sweet Sugar. This is the one that had Fusarium really bad, and I cut it apart and I almost threw it out, but then it grew that new growth right there, which is teeny tiny. But then immediately it put out this one, and as you can see, the structure is a fair amount larger. So she's going in the right direction. So we're going to keep fighting for her. I mean, this one obviously was not happy, but the plant was not happy. So now she has another new growth, which is substantially larger than the first. So, you know, it's probably going to take several years before she's back to blooming strength, but as long as she's willing to grow, I'm willing to try to save her. So, you know, it's not a big deal. I just change the water every week. Why not try to save her? Okay. This is my Sai Kumari. This is the first Oncidium I ever purchased, and I put her through hell. Poor thing. Because I really didn't know what I was doing. But I got her with, she had 3 pseudobulbs and 2 new growths, which have since developed into pseudobulbs, as you can see. And now she has 2 more new growths. She's got one right there, and she's got one right here. So she's doing really good. Her root production's pretty amazing. I had to move her into a larger glass because she is taking over. So she's not holding against me the fact that I've tried several times to kill her because I didn't know what I was doing. She's got adorable little blooms. They look like little popcorn. They're really tiny. They're not quite twinkle size, but they're close. They're little teeny tiny blooms, and I just think they're adorable. I wanted to also share this with you. I haven't really featured this orchid since I got her. She is an LC Long-Tune African Beauty. She's a miniature orchid. So, you know, this is the plant, and this is my new growth. And that's why I wanted to share it with you, because that is huge compared to her. Like, this is her biggest growth, and then this is my growth. So she is a happy lady. She gets a fair amount of light. She's actually on the same shelf right in the front as my Phalaenopsis in my living room, and she likey. So she's doing really good. She did get one other new growth, but I don't know which one it is. It was not as magnificent as this one, and it's very firm and healthy. Some of my Cattleyas, their new growths are very weak, you know, like flimsy, like you can go like this and they're like blah, blah, blah. Sorry for the sound effect. So I do believe that I have a calcium deficiency, but that's my fault because I made assumptions about my pH levels that I shouldn't have been, and I very recently did a whole day of just chemistry nonsense and figured out that my pH levels were too high, and calcium is available at a lower pH. So I have made adjustments, and hopefully that will help. So that's that. I know that's going to raise a lot of questions. I'm going to try to do a video soon about my fertilizing routines and how I've tweaked the way that I fertilize based on that new aha moment that I had. This is my older Shari baby. This is the Shari baby I've had for 1.5 years that had Fusarium that I like sliced apart and tried to save, and she's doing magnificently well. I mean, this piece was literally a new growth that stopped growing, like you can see. It's just a new growth that stopped growing, and she got a pseudobulb there, she got a pseudobulb there. I mean, she is game to survive, and now she has a new growth right there, which I should be doing this with 2 hands so that you can actually see it. She has a new growth right there. So she is definitely putting her best foot forward. This was the other new growth. This one was a slightly larger new growth, so I had higher hopes for her, and she did not disappoint. It's a nice, decent sized pseudobulb. I mean, not as big as it should be, but decent sized that she grew, and now she has another new growth right there, which is very healthy. No accordion leaves, getting plenty of roots. These orchids literally had not one root on them when I quote unquote saved them. And look at all these beautiful, gorgeous roots. Look at that. And then this is the one piece of actual, you know, mature pseudobulb that I saved. It wasn't a new growth, it was an actual pseudobulb. She grew, you know, a little tiny pseudobulb right there, and now she has another new growth right there. And again, beautiful new roots. So it's just a little update on my collection, and hopefully I answered, you know, some of your questions. I do want to try to get back into making more videos, and again, I apologize for my lack of videos. Hopefully now life will even out a little bit. I do have more trips planned, but they're kind of a little bit spaced out. You know, there's some time in between, so I should have more time available to, you know, chat with you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I am going to try to do that video about my change in fertilizing. And I think that's pretty much it. If I come across anything that I think is interesting, I will definitely show it to you. I've been wanting to show you this Tullum Nia bloom since it bloomed. It's been in bloom for about a week. But again, I had to like catch up on a lot of stuff because I was away for so long, and then I was sick. So I do apologize, but I was definitely in the back of my mind, I gotta get this on film because I don't know how long these blooms are gonna last. But I hope you guys are all enjoying your summer and staying nice and cool. It is pretty wicked hot here. It's, you know, in the 90s, low 90s most days, which is very hot for around here. So I have my fans and my ACs running constantly for the orchids and the animals. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, I hope you all are enjoying your summer, and I will talk to you all next time.